Number 1. I was a junior in high school back in 2007. I had just gotten home from being out with two of my guy friends who recently went off to college that year. It was probably 8 PM when we got back to my house. It was almost completely dark outside. When I pulled into the driveway, my mum caught me in the garage and asked if I knew the guy sitting in a silver SUV across the street from our house. I told her no, but she kept questioning me about it because she said that this guy had been sitting in his car for over an hour and kept pretending to shuffle through things in his car whenever my mum caught him looking towards our house. Again, I told her I had no idea who that guy was, but we were going to make some popcorn and go inside to watch a movie downstairs. I should note that we lived on the first tee of a golf course, so we were right next to the putting green. Across the street from our house was the 9th hole, so we only had one neighbor, an elderly couple, to the right of us before you could drive down into the subdivision. We go downstairs and start up a movie. We've been home for maybe an hour or so when my friend asks, "Do you see that?" I was like, "See what?" And he said, "I think I just saw something move outside the window." We had ground level windows that ran the entire length of the basement, my room, the office, and the living room. I brushed it off because I remembered my mum saying something about growing a rose bush up a trellis in the backyard. My friend was like, "No, that's a person. I just saw a phone light up." My two friends immediately ran upstairs and yelled at my parents to call 911 because someone has been watching us. The guys go running outside and find the guy who'd been watching us. He had ran behind our neighbor's house, and my friends caught him with his hands up in the middle of the street. The silver SUV was gone. My friends asked him what he was doing, but the guys just started running towards the 9th hole of the golf course across the street. He ran behind our big stone neighborhood sign where his silver SUV was now parked. At that point, my friends hop in their car. They dial 911. My mum, while on the phone with 911, runs over to the putting green to try getting his license plate number. He almost hits my mum with his car before flying out of our neighborhood. He makes a left-hand turn to get on the highway. He's in such a hurry to get away that he turned into oncoming traffic. He stayed on the wrong side of the highway and dodged cars for a while, before he finally sped through the grass median and got on the right side of the highway. He pulls into a gas station in the next town over, 10 miles south of our town. My friends pull into a hotel parking lot across the highway and main road that runs through the town and watch him. 911 tells them that they were on the way. The guy begins taunting my friends from the gas station. 911 tells them to stay put and not to get out of the car. Police finally arrive after a few minutes, and the guy once again tries to run. They finally corner him against a dumpster behind the gas station. They start to question him, and the guy won't give up any information to the police. They can't get a name, address, reason as to why he was here and what he was doing. They finally get a warrant and are able to search his car and cell phone. He lives in Kansas City, which is about 3.5 hours away from my town. They also found large black 55 gal trash bags, rope, tape, and medical equipment in his car. He had erased everything from his phone and called the same number over 20 times in the 10-minute drive to the next town. The cops asked him what he was doing behind our house, and he tells them that he sells medical equipment and that his girlfriend used to live in the house 4 or 5 years ago. But that was a lie. We built our house from the ground over a year ago before this happened. 4 to 5 years before, the golf course wasn't even there. It was just a field. All I remember after that was a police officer looking incredibly defeated and taking off his hat to greet my parents. He said it would probably be better if I didn't hear what happened, and no one told me until I was well into college. Basically, there was nothing that they could do. The cops didn't believe the story or anything that the guy told them. But since he didn't have a record, they couldn't hold him. They didn't have any hard evidence of wrongdoing. They said if he ever gets caught doing something like this again, he would face charges, but there was nothing that could be done at that point in time. The only thing the cops did recommend was my parents keep a close eye on my social media. MySpace was huge back then, because anyone can see your profile. So after that, I've always been careful of what I post on the internet, and always watch my surroundings. I have no idea what the guy's intentions were, or if he had the wrong house, but that night still sticks with me to this day. The thing that scares me the most is that I've had someone a few times over the years with the same name try to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. It always looks like a fake profile though. I block him and carry on. But I always wonder if the same guy is checking up on me every so often. Whenever I tell my parents this story, I always tell them that if I go missing, it will be him. Number 2. By far, this has been one of the scariest moments of my life. I lived a pretty sheltered life as a child. I'm an only child, and as is sometimes the case with only children, I lived an extremely overprotected life. My mom drilled stranger danger in my head since preschool, and would always stress the importance of being safe. Never go into a bathroom by yourself. Never get into a stranger's car. Never drink from an open bottle. Always ask for permission. Always stay within an adult's eyesight. I have to admit that half of the time it went in one ear and out the other. As a preteen, I thought I knew it all and hated the constant nagging. However, I get where she was coming from now. My mum was a recent widow and was adjusting to the role of a mum and dad, trying to shield me from the horrors that I'm only now beginning to see. We lived in an area that used to be a quaint little dairy town, but over the years had gone downhill and became crime-ridden. The dairy farm fell out of business, and in its place they constructed homes. It wasn't a bad place to live, but it wasn't the best either. I grew up thinking that it was a common occurrence to hear helicopters fly by, announcing that they were looking for someone. The cross street from my house led to a park that was known for gang activity, where almost every weekend someone would either be found dead or beat up, but it was okay because we didn't live on that end of the street. We knew most of their neighbors, and if we didn't know them by name, at least knew what they looked like. Despite it not being the best neighborhood, it was pretty quiet and we felt safe. By the time I was in 7th grade, I finally had gotten some freedoms. My best friend Tiffany and I would always take turns spending the night at each other's houses, but most of the time she would come to mine. Tiffany had a little brother that would always pester us, and she liked coming over to my house because we could talk about boys without her little brother trying to eavesdrop. I think my mum preferred it that way too, because she was more lenient with us, knowing we were safe at our house. She even would sometimes go on her daily walks and leave us at home by ourselves for about an hour or so. We loved it. I'm not sure what had happened on this particular day. We probably ate pizza, sat on my front porch outside as the sun set, and listened to the radio at way too high of a volume. Perhaps this was even one of those nights where my mum left us home alone for a while. I wish I could say I saw something out of the ordinary or felt uneasy, but I didn't. After it got dark, we retreated to my room. My room has 2 windows. One faces the backyard and the other faces the street. I like natural light as much as possible, so, as usual, the blinds were open. Even though it was now dark outside, which meant that people could see inside, but we couldn't see out, I still left them open. I was too lazy to climb onto my bed to close them, and had a false sense of security knowing that there was a tall pine tree directly in front of my window. With the tree in front of the window, I felt protected, almost as if my room was invisible to the outside world. As the night grew quieter, we decided to build a fort out of sheets and tell scary stories. By this time, it was really late at night, and my mum was fast asleep in her room. After the first story, or two, I started to grow uneasy and got up to close the blinds. I was creeped out, thinking that someone could be lurking outside, peeking in, but figured it was all in my mind because of the stories we were telling. We got through a couple of more classic stories and started talking about true ghost stories, things that relatives claimed they saw or heard. Our eyes were watery, hearts pounding, muscles clenched when suddenly there was loud, furious banging on my bedroom window. It wasn't a knock that grew into a series of louder knocks. It was an angry knock that you felt through your body. My heart was pounding in sync with each subsequent knock. I sat there frozen, not knowing what to do. My mind was frantically trying to make sense of the situation. It just didn't make sense that someone would be knocking on my bedroom window so late at night. We have an iron gate that surrounds our house, and it's pretty loud. I was surprised that we didn't hear the gate open. Even then, the front door is 5 feet from the gate. Why didn't they knock at the front door first? My room is all the way in the back and wasn't even the first window with a light on. You pass by 2 other windows before you get to mine. A million questions running through my head, and my brain comes to the only possible conclusion. It's Tiffany's little brother trying to scare us. Yeah, because it makes that a 10-year-old boy walked over to my house in the middle of the night to scare us. In what felt like ages, but was most likely a matter of seconds, I finally came to the realization that it wasn't her little brother. The knocks continued. They were loud and angry, yet no one was saying anything. We were both frozen in fear. I just wanted to stay hidden in the fort, where I couldn't be seen. What if whoever was knocking was peeking in through the cracks in the blinds and watched me as I crawled out from under the sheets? The thought of it made my every muscle weak. And then, silence. The knocking had stopped. I felt my body ease up a bit. Maybe whoever was out there had left. And cue teenage brain. We decided to go and investigate. My mum was blissfully unaware of what was going on, still fast asleep. We slid out of the fort and tiptoed down the hallway towards the front door. Adrenaline pumped through our body as we decided one of us would sneak to the front door and look out the peephole or window and see if we could see something. Neither one of us wanted to be the one to do it, but it was my house, so I volunteered. All the doors were locked, the windows have bars on them. I just had to be as quiet as possible. Beneath every step I took, the wood creaked and groaned. After a few minutes, I finally found myself standing at the front door. My whole torso felt numb as I inched my face closer to the peephole. Holding my breath, I look out and I suddenly felt hot and cold at the same time. I didn't know whether to keep looking out or slink back down. I think a little part of me convinced myself that the porch would be empty that night, but instead, standing on my porch was an unfamiliar man. I have no idea who this man is, but he's standing awkwardly close to the door. Something about this just didn't seem right. What threw me off the most was that he was just pounding on my bedroom window 15 or so minutes ago, and now he was standing at the front door so calmly and quietly. It was as if the roaring avalanche had turned into a falling feather. With my stomach in my throat, I snuck back to the hallway, where Tiffany was waiting for me. All I could say is, "There's a man out there." Immediately she says, "Go tell your mum." It wasn't a question, It was a demand. We ran into her room and urgently told her, "Mum, someone's knocking." She must have sensed the urgency in my voice, because she sprung up and told us to stay in her room with the door closed, and instructed us not to open the door no matter what happened. We stood behind the door for what seemed like ages, just trying to listen. The front door was too far away, so all we heard was silence. Finally, we hear footsteps coming towards us. It was so quiet around us that I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I almost had a heart attack when my mum's bedroom door started swinging open. It was my mum. She told us to not worry about it, that the man was gone. And this left me with a million questions. But she was very vague. What did he want? Nothing, don't worry about it. Who was he? I don't know. She shooed us back to bed, and we complied. The adrenaline had started to wear off at this point, and I was now exhausted. We didn't stay up and speculate or talk. That was that, and it was the end of the story. For now. The next day, I was sitting in my room and I hear my mum talking to someone. I've always been a very quiet kid. And even as a baby, people would often forget that I was around. I'm quiet, but I hear everything. I stopped what I was doing, probably downloading music on Napster or something, and listened. My mum was telling her friend about the man from last night. Apparently, she opened the door and through the screen asked the man if he needed any help. The man stammered as if he was trying to think up a story and introduced himself as a neighbor. He said that his mum was sick and he was going around asking for money to help her buy medicine. Concerned, but also trying to poke holes at this story, my mum asked him what her name was, in case my mum knew her. The guy didn't give her an answer, or gave a vague one, I believe, and then pointed in a general direction, saying that they lived at that house over there. My mum didn't buy it. She knew everyone that lived near us, and she'd never seen this man before. She probably should have closed the door at this point and told him that she didn't have any money on her, but she didn't want to piss him off. She didn't know if he was armed or dangerous, and thought maybe he's just a junkie and will run off if I just give him a bit of cash. Luckily, she had fallen asleep in her clothes, so as she reached in her back pocket, she found $5, change from the pizza we had ordered earlier. She unlocked the screen door and handed him the cash. The man started to get more aggressive and growls.
"That's all you have?"
Now, my mum is starting to sense something more sinister in this man. He's not just a junkie, or if he was, he's an aggressive one. My mum then lies to him and quickly tells the man, "Yes, this is all I have. We live day to day here and $5 is actually even more than I should spare. But your mum is sick and I feel bad. She definitely needs this money more than we do right now." Not satisfied by her answer, he continues to demand more cash. My mum realizes that this man is not taking no for an answer and begins to bluff. She tells him that she'll go and get her husband. Maybe he has some cash on him. "We really don't have any more cash, but maybe my husband has some on him. I would hate to leave a neighbor in need. Your mum must really need that medicine, Tim." All of a sudden, the man's demeanor changes as he mutters,
No, it's okay, that's okay,"
and treks out of there. I don't know what would have happened if the man had called on her bluff, that there was no husband, but thinking a man was present scared the hell out of the guy enough to drive him away fast. I grew cold, thinking that he probably thought that me and Tiffany were home alone. He must have been watching us and planning on breaking in. Cue teenage brain. Oh well, he's gone. Gotta go download that Usher album. I'm not sure if the following event was related, but due to its close proximity to the previous one, I think it's worth mentioning. The following week, I was waiting for Tiffany's mum to pick me up to go to school. We lived 2 houses away, so they would always swing by for me in the morning. I usually would be done getting ready before they arrived, so I would head outside to the front yard and wait for them out there. Sometimes, I'd go climb the tree in the front and look for bird eggs. Other times, I'd just search for leaf clovers. I was walking around, not paying attention to my surroundings, when I hear what I can only describe as what I would imagine a gun with a silencer sounds like. A quiet little pew, followed by a loud noise, which I later realized was glass breaking. Stunned, I looked around. What the hell was that? All I saw was a white van drive by. I looked over at my neighbor's house and noticed that the window to their car was completely shattered. Shards of glass everywhere. I still didn't quite put 2 and 2 together until I saw the same white van drive by, the driver staring me down. I felt a sense of unease and wanted to run back inside. For some reason though, I didn't. I had too much pride. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing that they had scared me. Also, I thought that if I ran inside, they would maybe think that I was a snitch and would retaliate. I played dumb, as if I hadn't noticed anything. They drove by again, and once more after that. I tried not to look at the van as it drove by each time, but each time it drove by, I could feel the driver's gaze on me. Soon after, Tiffany's mum came by and took me to school. I don't know if the van drove by a 4th time. I never told anyone about the van. Luckily, nothing ever happened after that.
Number 3.
This is a true story that happened to me. So, this happened in our neighborhood when I was about 10, I would say. We lived in a super nice subdivision on a ridge near a marina. The houses were not all right on top of each other due to how the land was, and our house was one of those houses that was right next to the other houses. Our house backed up to a lot of woods that I used to play in. Our neighborhood was plagued one year by a peeping Tom. My mum had talked to some neighbors and several people had noticed the guy creeping about in our backyard or looking in windows. One neighbor said that she and her husband had another couple over for dinner, and when the ladies went out into their backyard down to the woodpile to get more firewood, they noticed a man standing just inside the woods, staring at them. They ran to get their husbands, but by the time the husbands came, he was gone. So we were on a lookout, and one night I was in bed, and my bed was on the opposite side of the window in my room. Our house was mostly all on ground level, but my bedroom window was higher from the ground. However, there was a small ledge right under my window that you can stand on and see inside. I used to use that ledge to climb in and out of the window for fun. I even put a slide under the window once and would slide out of the window. So, one night I'm in bed and I wake up for some reason. I look out of the window and the floodlights were on in the backyard, and I nearly saw the outline of a man's shoulder and head in the window. Like he was standing on that ledge just trying to look in. I scream and get my parents, and of course, he's gone by the time they get there. My mom tended to believe me, but my dad said that I was just dreaming. I made my dad search the entire huge house though before I went back to sleep. A report came in from the neighbors that the boats down at the marina were getting broken into. My guess is that the peeping Tom was breaking into the boats for food or to sleep in. Well, it all came to a head one night, and lucky as we were the family that got the worst of it. Our house was like one level on top and had a basement. Well, the master bedroom had these huge windows that went all the way to the ground. They would even be opened and just had the screen. You see, you turn the handle and you simply open out. My parents were lax when it came to security and would leave the damn windows open while they slept if the weather was nice. So, my dad was gone at night, which was not abnormal for him. He was gone at night a lot, which perhaps Peeping Tom knew if he had been watching us. My mum was sleeping in her bed, which was right next to those big fold-out windows which were open. She likes to sleep with the TV on. So, she said she was hearing leaves crunching, and she thought it must have been something on the TV. All of a sudden, it dawned on her. She realized that the sound is coming from outside the window, literally a foot and a half away. Terrified, she jumped up out of the bed and ran and turned on the floodlights out front. And right there, surprise, surprise, in that window was the outline of a man. The man was literally just standing there, and all he had to do was kick the screen and step into the house. It was that simple. We did have an alarm system, so my mum runs and hits the panic button, and the alarm goes off. She said the guy bolted as soon as she did that. I was asleep in my bed while this was all going on, and I woke up to the loud blasting of the alarm, and the cops arrived very shortly after that. The cops were too lazy to go into the woods looking for him. My mum said that he ran into those woods behind our house that I like to play in. They did take an unmarked car and drove around to the other side of the woods to see if they would catch him when he came out of the other side. But of course, they never found him. Maybe the guy almost getting caught was enough for him, because after that night, the Peeping Tom was never seen in our neighborhood again. I suppose he moved on, but not before he literally scared the living daylight out of me and my mother. The lesson that this incident had taught me is that I should never, ever sleep with the windows open.